So the topic that I'm going to talk about today, as you see, Open API, it's something that actually has affected my day-to-day work life. It's something that's made my job a lot easier, and it's been a lot easier to integrate for us as a processor, and we'll talk a little bit about what we do as a processor, but also to be able to enable Fintech. So the ability to be able to code to our API has drastically changed since we opened our API and published it on our website. Our website's galileoprocessing.com, and there's a sandbox link there if you want to register, and you can take a look at what our API looks like. So really talking about payment trends in the Americas and the evolution of it and how it's changed and why the Open API has driven it so much. When I think about the banking trends, and I think back to what I knew as a child, a lot of you are probably thinking, there's no way this guy's over 29, maybe 30 at the most. But this will date me, and I'm much older than that. But I remember banking, to me, my earliest memories would be my dad was a school teacher. He'd get paid once a month. He'd come home with a paper check. We'd get in the truck, and he'd go down to the bank and cash it, and then just put the cash in his wallet, and that's how him and my mom lived. Also, she probably had the checkbook, and she was more in control of the checkbook than him. And by the way, how many people still use a checkbook? Raise their hands. There are people that use checkbooks still quite a bit. How many people do Apple, Samsung, Android Pay? There's a good evolutionary change right there. Many more of you raised your hands on that second one than using checks still. But that's how I remember banking then, and then it went through to the ATM, which seemed to change a lot of things, and then now it's a completely different world, and what we're doing. And so some of the things that are some of the new innovation that when we're talking about, and the main topic here is the Open API. We published our API about just a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And when I say it changed my day-to-day life, it made my job a lot easier. And I think about other things when we're talking banking trends. As a processor, we're integrated with somewhere around 20 issuing banks. Most of our business now is US and Canada, but like I said, it's a big drive for us to go down into Mexico. In fact, Tori Jackson's here with me, a colleague of mine, and we're going to be in Mexico City next week. With several meetings lined up all week. If any of you are from Mexico City, by the way, come and talk to us. We'd love to set up some time maybe to talk. Let's definitely set something up. But integrated to these issuing banks, the way that the model looks in the US, a lot of you probably know this, but we're integrated to the issuing bank. The funds sit at the bank, but the account's actually created on our platform. And it's created through the API. And so it's great to get, by the way, to get a chance to go after Melissa from Chime. They're a great partner of ours. So there's an example of if you swipe a Chime card, which I have one in my wallet right now, if you swipe that card, the authorization comes through the Visa network to us. So that's where we fit in the puzzle with a lot of our partners. A little bit about us, before I go any further, we started in 2000, and I've been there just about half that time. I started in 2010. And the way that the evolution of us publishing the API has changed our company drastically. So early on, I think of a standard partner for us to be like just a standard prepaid offering, right? Focused on non-banked, underbanked, and other. But it basically was, they would come to us, we would negotiate, we would talk through the legal, we talked through funds flow and all those good conversations, but the IT side of it was also just a conversation. It wasn't something they could look at and work in. They would say to us, we used to kind of be the top to bottom technology piece for some of our legacy partners from years ago. And we would say, here's our standard web page, here's our standard mobile app, and it wasn't really about the API. We were providing those. But the way that the Open API has evolved and changed our day-to-day basically is the way that the new deal works is someone, I'll be introduced to someone, we'll be talking to someone about possibly partnering up, and they will just say, okay, show me your API. They're not interested in anything that we would build. Like, why would you want your processor to own and build your technology, right? So now it's all about the open API. The way that that's changed my day-to-day life is in that same process, while we're negotiating over here on legal or looking at funds flow and you know, those kind of things, the developers are already coding away. So it's allowing them to go right into this test area and start to build into their mobile app. Many of you have probably gone to Monday 2020, or you may have seen this sign out there. It's kind of a sister show to this. Last year, and even 2 years ago at Monday 2020, we had some groups come up and were showing me this mobile app that they're demoing, and it was actually just coded to our sandbox, to our open API. They weren't in production, so no funds were moving, but they were coded to our API and simulating what it would look like to have transactions happen and, you know, loads on the account, things like that. So it's really been drastically different. I don't have to have the conversation around IT anymore. I just say, here's your login to the sandbox in our open API, and it's just allowed for you know, groups like Chime and others. I'll show you in a bit some of our partners and what verticals they're in. But it's really changed that, and it's also allowed them to develop a lot faster than they used to, because number one, they're starting earlier, but number two, it's all documented and shown out there. There's nothing that's, you know, that we hold back on that. So like I said, I'd look forward to having any of you take a look at it. So it's definitely targeted towards the software engineer, which in Fintech, it's just they go hand in hand, right? Developers are Fintech, and Fintech is new innovators and new ideas like yourselves, you know, creating new tools, whether it's to resolve an issue that you see or solve a problem or just something you're passionate about. The open API allows you or your developers, whoever that is, you could be one and the same person, to be able to really dive in and just get started and seeing what, you know, and seeing what we offer on our side. And it really has changed our development lifecycle as far as, you know, getting new partners out to market. As I also, you know, mentioned that changes my day-to-day, and that's why, you know, this is kind of one of the topics we're talking about. It kind of goes with this image as well, right? So some of us had those early, whatever that old Commodore, whatever that old computer is, to kind of a more sleeker look, you know, as a new laptop look there. And so, you know, talking about how I used to think of, when I just kind of thinking about, you know, what to talk about, and I think about my early memories of banking as opposed to our open API being published and how that's changed my day-to-day as well. It's really drastic to see, you know, when you're talking about old school versus, you know, versus a new school, and what it looks like now. Whoops. Oh, there we go. So we've got 60 or 70 partners that we work with, that we do processing for. And like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, the way that works is we've got the processing platform. We're integrated to these, you know, these many issuing banks. And then coming in to want to process on our platform would be, like we're mentioning, fintechs. When we think of fintech, sometimes you think of a new startup, where it really isn't necessarily just a new startup. There's like Chime's, their growth is phenomenal, and a lot of those kind of partners that we're working with, the growth is just amazing. And when one of these program managers or a fintech acquires a cardholder, to that cardholder, that's their bank, right? Many of them are having a direct deposit there. They open the app, they look at their transactions, they do everything through this experience or this UI or this entire user experience that they've created, that these program managers and fintechs create just by coding into our API. And so it really does give a whole new experience to the user. But then also keeping in mind behind that, there is an issuing bank, right? So there's a bank behind a lot of the fintechs that are doing something, especially with a card, if there's a card program. Also, if there's anything where funds are moving from wallet A to wallet B, or, you know, whatever that is, there's an issuing bank. So the BIN sponsorship banks are really, really important and critical in their role around what we do. You know, for example, if a program manager is looking to make some changes to something simple like, you know, allow our cardholders a higher open to buy. So we're going to give their credit limit from 2,000 to 3,000. Those kind of things have to go through the bank, and we rely on them for their compliance and their regulatory oversight. So they're really key with what we do as a processor. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the verticals that the API is allowing. What some of our partners are doing. As you can see, we've seen Chime on there, for example. So we've got, like I said, a lot of big names. You'll recognize a lot of these in the U.S. and Canada right now, but certainly looking forward to, like I said, seeing who we can meet and talk to be able to expand. South too. You can see we've got a wealth management is one of our big verticals right now. And again, these companies come in and they're coding to our open API. Like a neo-challenger bank, we call that, or bank disruptors, like we've got some of those listed there. A lot of the partners that we have now are big program managers or fintech companies that are from Europe coming into the States. So we see a lot of that. And now, like I've been saying, and don't want to sound like I'm repeating too much, but we certainly want to open that up, right, and work to go global, to go south, and also our own expansion to Europe as well. But you can do a lot of control through the API. And so, you've got Chime, Coho's up in Canada. They're doing some great things. Revolut, Varo. When these users log into that app, and it's coded to our API, it's, like I said, it's their banking platform for a lot of those, like a neo-challenger bank. Like, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. And I've talked to them about what I do. They think I just make phone calls and send emails. But when I talk to them about what I do, and I've asked them a few questions, I actually talked to them before I came just to kind of see what their thoughts were on some things. They use Chime themselves, and then I use some of these other products as well. But for them, it is, like I said, for them, they don't see a reason to ever go to a bank location, because that's not really what their world is now. It's all about being in the mobile app. Parent-teen programs, there's some really cool things that Greenlight and Current are doing. That's a program like where I would sign up for an account as a parent, and then I could get cards from my kids and then control how they spend. Not only control how they spend, but also kind of give them financial education, rewards, things like that as they can progress their way through some online classes they can do in the mobile app, and that's all done through API now. And it's been such a big change. We're doing a lot of personal lending. That allows, some of these allow for you to do on-the-spot lending. So if you're at a retail location, you go into the mobile app, you can apply, get an account, get an extension of credit, and then that's processed on our platform. We're doing a lot of the grocery and person pickup stuff. I know I've just recently been using Uber Eats for kind of my first time, and it's an interesting experience, but we're doing a lot of that stuff in that space, and again, through the API. Mobile wallets, you can see a lot of those are big global companies like a TransferWise and PaySafe, Verizon. And so, with that change, like I said, affects my day-to-day life. Hopefully, we can look to do some partnering together. Love to show you the API and come over and talk to us over in the Galileo booth, and yeah, we can see what, like I said, I want to see what you guys are up to, and we can talk a little bit more about what we do. But feel free, certainly contact us and come and see us. And like I said, the website's galileoprocessing.com. Not to sound too salesy, but just if you're wanting to look up any more information.